Hi, I'm Max from RME, speaking to you from the Anaheim Convention Center where the NAMM is currently taking place. And we used the NAMM to introduce a new audio interface, and that is the Fireface UCX. It's our next product in the X-Core range, so it is similar like the UFX, hosting DSP processor, lots of new features that I will show you now. First of all, let's have a quick look at the inputs and outputs. On the input side, we have 2 analog inputs with mic preamps, 2 analog inputs with switchable high Z input for instruments, and 4 balanced inputs at the back. On the output side, we have 6 balanced connectors, TRS jacks of course, and phones on the front. We have a new encoder that actually allows you to change the gain and the output levels, but also lets you recall presets that you previously stored from your total mix surface. So this is quite handy. Indicator lights, of course, to indicate if the word clock is okay, if the connection to the PC or Mac is okay, or any media signals go in or out of the unit. On the back, we have the power connector. The hook is to protect your cables from falling out. You can just put it through. We have a little power connector, USB and Firewire as part of the X-Core. These directly connect to the core of our chip and perform very well equally. So you might want to use USB, that's what we usually recommend, depending on your system. If you have too many devices on the USB bus, you can also use Firewire, which equally performs well. We have a connector for the remote control. Now the Fireface UCX comes with a remote control right here. Long cable. Comes in handy when you're on your workplace. You don't want to always reach down to where the microphones are connected. You have the gain and the dim and a programmable button that could be, for example, speaker B or mute or whatever. You have it right in reach at your DAW. So next is the MIDI port. There's a breakout cable which gives you 2 MIDI inputs and 2 MIDI outputs. Next is the word clock, of course featuring RME static clock technology, which reduces jitter tremendously, refreshes any incoming word clock, and that is really giving you a very stable digital signal. The ADAT port is next, 8 channels in, 8 channels out. You can connect another preamp, for example, Octamic or Mixtasy, and to have more preamps available in case you need that, for example, recording a drum set. The ADAT output can also be switched to SPDIF optical. You separately have an SPDIF coaxial output. The Fireface UCX performs very well on Mac and PC. All DAW software is available, from Pro Tools, Logic, Pyramix, Sequoia, whatever your favorite software is. But some users might not want to use this on their DAW software at home. They might want to connect it to an iPad. So we have an iPad right here, and what happens if I connect the UCX to the iPad? Same thing happens that would happen with other devices. It says cannot use device. And the connected USB device is not supported. Well, that is because RME cannot provide a driver for the iPad. It simply doesn't let us install our driver that we use on macOS, for example. So in order to solve this problem, the developers have actually implemented a second firmware, which is so-called USB class compliant. That is a driver architecture that already exists in the iPad and allows manufacturers to make audio interfaces that work with any applications like GarageBand, Multitrack. In order to change the firmware, I go to the setup menu, and then I have settings here, factory defaults, and CC stands for class compliance. Press and hold, the unit reboots, and we're in the class compliant mode. On the iPad side, this means that now my applications have access to the first 8 analog inputs of the UCX and they give the stereo output to the UCX, and the UCX provides this stereo output on your headphones, on the analog output 1 and 2, on your ADAT output, and on the SPDIF output. So that lets you connect the iPad to pretty much any analog or digital device that you want to connect it to. So let's have a look, for example, in GarageBand. In GarageBand, if you want to make a recording, you have a little input selector here at the side. If I push it, you see it says channel input 1 and 2. That's already more than it would usually say, because the iPad only has one channel microphone, so now it's 2. That indicates probably the UCX is connected. So we have input 1 to 8, and inputs 1 plus 2, 3 plus 4, 5 plus 6, 7 plus 8, that means stereo recording. Now all of these recordings will be done in CD quality or even a little bit better, so that is actually quite fascinating technology. If you want to record more than 8 channels, you use another application. For example, Multitrack, Music Studio. There are several more coming up that actually support recording 8 tracks at once. Audio USB device is detected. I've selected and armed the channels. I arm the recording and press record, and right now it's recording, and to prove that I'm using my little microphone calibrator, a little sine tone generator, and I plug it in to the front input. Input 1, input 2. Make it louder, and you see the waveform if I change the gain. Yes. There we go. Wonderful clipping. So this is the first set of features when you connect it to the iPad. Also, it's possible to connect the MIDI inputs and outputs to the iPad, so you can control actually with the master keyboard applications like the Moog synthesizer or keyboards or whatever. That's pretty neat as well. We support sampling rates up to 96 kilohertz, or better say the iOS driver supports 96 kilohertz, so pretty high fidelity there. We use clock inside the UCX as a master, so we do not use the little bit jittery USB clock. We actually use our device as a master clock, and that performs exceptionally well with very, very low jitter. So the next feature is, as I mentioned before, it has our X-Core, and as every RME device hosts the full total mix capabilities. That means in combination with the X-Core, you can do interesting things like you take a microphone input, you filter the signal, like you do some equalizer settings, some reverb, some compressor, leveling, and so on. This is all done within the unit. It has to be set once with our Total Mix interface, which is available for Mac and PC. You have a whole range of setups that you can actually do. You trigger the phantom power, you have an equalizer section, a dynamic section, a whole effect section on the right, reverb, and so on. All these settings are actually calculated within the UCX. Alright, so this is it about the UCX. If you need more information, check with synthax.co.uk, and yes, see you again soon. Thanks.